In this life, we often find ourselves looking for validation from the outside world. We chase success, seek approval, and wait for recognition, thinking that these external measures will fill the void inside of us. We believe that if we are good enough in the eyes of others, we will feel worthy. But what if I told you that the key to living a fulfilled life is not in seeking approval from others, but in learning to love and accept yourself as you are? Self-love is not a luxury. It's not a selfish act, nor is it a sign of arrogance. It is the foundation upon which everything else is built. It is the root of all success, happiness, and contentment. It is the quiet confidence that comes from within when you understand your worth, value your uniqueness, and appreciate the journey that you are on. When you truly love yourself, the world becomes a much better place to live in. You are no longer seeking external validation because you know deep down that you are enough. Learning to love yourself begins with self-awareness. You cannot love what you do not know. You must take the time to look within, to understand who you truly are, what you truly want, and what makes you tick. It's about connecting with your inner being and letting go of the noise that clouds your judgment. Self-awareness is not about perfection or knowing every little detail about yourself. It's about understanding your strengths, acknowledging your weaknesses, and accepting both with grace. One of the most important aspects of self-love is forgiveness. We are often our own harshest critics. We hold ourselves to impossible standards, and when we fall short, we beat ourselves up. We replay our mistakes over and over in our heads, thinking we are failures. But failure is not the opposite of success. It is a part of the process. You will stumble. You will fall. But that does not define you. What defines you is your ability to rise again, to dust yourself off, and to keep moving forward. Forgive yourself for the mistakes you've made, learn from them, and use them as stepping stones to become the person you are meant to be. This process of self-forgiveness is incredibly liberating. It allows you to release the guilt and shame that hold you back and to step into your full potential. When you forgive yourself, you give yourself permission to grow, to evolve, and to become the best version of yourself. You stop living in the past, and you begin living in the present. You stop looking back at the mistakes you've made and start looking forward to the opportunities that lie ahead. Self-love also requires you to set boundaries. Many people struggle with this because we've been conditioned to believe that saying no is a form of rejection. We fear disappointing others or being seen as selfish. But setting healthy boundaries is not about rejecting others, it's about protecting your energy and your peace. It's about knowing when to say yes to yourself and when to say no to things that drain you, deplete you, or are not aligned with your goals and values. When you set boundaries, you are showing yourself the respect that you deserve. You are telling yourself that your time, your energy, and your mental health matter. You are putting yourself first without feeling guilty. And by doing so, you will find that the relationships in your life become more meaningful and genuine. You will no longer be trying to please everyone at the expense of your own happiness. Another key aspect of self-love is self-care. Self-care is not just about pampering yourself or indulging in a day of relaxation. It's about taking the time to nurture your mind, body, and soul. It's about making choices that promote your well-being in all aspects of your life. Whether it's eating healthy, exercising, getting enough rest, or practicing mindfulness, self-care is an essential part of loving yourself. But self-care goes beyond the physical. It's also about taking care of your mental and emotional health. It's about being kind to yourself, speaking positively about yourself, and surrounding yourself with people who uplift you. It's about letting go of toxic relationships, negative thought patterns, and anything else that hinders your growth. When you practice self-care, you are sending a message to yourself that you are worthy of love, respect, and happiness. Self-love requires you to be patient with yourself. We live in a world where everything is fast-paced, and we often expect immediate results. But personal growth is not a race, it is a journey, and it takes time. You cannot rush the process. You cannot force yourself to be someone you are not. You must allow yourself the space to grow at your own pace, to make mistakes, and to learn from them. Being patient with yourself means understanding that growth is not linear. Some days will be better than others. Some days you may feel like you're on top of the world, and other days you may feel like you've taken 10 steps backward. But that's okay. It's all part of the process. As long as you keep moving forward, as long as you keep showing up for yourself, you are making progress. And that progress is worth celebrating. Self-love is also about being authentic. In a world full of comparisons, it's easy to fall into the trap of wanting to be like someone else. We see others' success, their achievements, their lives, and we think we should be doing the same things. But the truth is, you are not meant to be anyone else. You are meant to be you. Your uniqueness is your strength. Your experiences, your struggles, your triumphs, they are what make you who you are. When you embrace your authenticity, you stop trying to fit into a mold that was never made for you. You stop trying to live up to other people's expectations and start living according to your own values and desires. You stop comparing yourself to others and start celebrating your own journey. You realize that you are enough, just as you are, and that you don't need to be anyone else to succeed. The more you love yourself, the more you will attract love and positivity into your life. People who are confident in themselves radiate energy that draws others to them. When you love yourself, you teach others how to love you. You show them that you deserve respect, kindness, and appreciation. And when you surround yourself with people who value and support you, you create an environment in which you can continue to grow and thrive. Self-love also means taking responsibility for your life. You are the author of your own story. The choices you make, the actions you take, and the decisions you make all shape your future. No one else is responsible for your happiness, your success, or your fulfillment. It is up to you to create the life you want. And when you take responsibility for your life, you empower yourself to make changes, to set goals, and to live with purpose. Taking responsibility for your life also means letting go of excuses. It means recognizing that you have the power to change your circumstances and to take control of your destiny. It means not blaming others for your problems, but instead looking within and asking yourself what you can do to improve your situation. When you take ownership of your life, you become the hero of your own story. Self-love is a practice, not a destination. It is something that you must cultivate every single day. It is about making small, consistent choices that honor and value who you are. It's about taking the time to nurture yourself, to invest in your growth, and to show yourself the same love and compassion that you would show to others. Self-love is not about being perfect. It's about accepting yourself, flaws and all, and embracing the journey of becoming the best version of yourself. When you love yourself, you stop waiting for the world to validate you. You no longer seek approval from others because you know that your worth is not dependent on anyone else's opinion of you. You stop looking for happiness in external circumstances because you realize that happiness comes from within. You stop fearing failure because you understand that it is just a stepping stone on the path to success. You stop doubting yourself because you know that you are capable of achieving anything you set your mind to. Loving yourself is not always easy. There will be days when you feel discouraged, when you feel like giving up, when you feel like you're not enough. But on those days, remind yourself that you are worthy, that you are deserving of love and happiness, and that you are enough just as you are. On those days, be kind to yourself, be gentle with yourself, and remember that you are a work in progress. You are on your way to becoming the person you were always meant to be. When you truly love yourself, you become unstoppable. You become fearless in the pursuit of your dreams. You become resilient in the face of adversity. You become a magnet for positivity and success. You become a beacon of light for others who are on their own journey of self-discovery. And most importantly, you become the best version of yourself. True self-love begins with understanding who you are, acknowledging your strengths and weaknesses, and accepting yourself without judgment. It's about embracing your unique qualities and being comfortable in your own skin. Self-love involves forgiving yourself for past mistakes and understanding that failure is part of the growth process. It's about letting go of guilt and using setbacks as stepping stones toward personal development and future success. Loving yourself means setting boundaries that protect your mental and emotional health. It's about prioritizing your needs, learning to say no when necessary, and ensuring that your relationships and commitments are aligned with your values. Self-love requires embracing your true self and living authentically without comparing yourself to others. It's also about taking responsibility for your life, making empowered choices, and creating the future you desire. Self-awareness and acceptance are foundational elements of personal growth and well-being. They are the bedrock upon which self-love is built, forming the basis for healthy relationships with oneself and others. In a world that constantly bombards us with external influences and societal expectations, cultivating self-awareness and embracing self-acceptance can often feel like a daunting task. However, it is through this very journey of self-discovery that we find true inner peace and strength. These concepts, though simple in nature, can transform how we perceive ourselves and our place in the world. Self-awareness is the ability to turn inward and examine one's thoughts, emotions, actions, and motivations with a sense of curiosity and without judgment. It involves becoming conscious of our mental and emotional patterns, recognizing how these patterns influence our behavior, and understanding why we react the way we do in different situations. Self-awareness is the practice of paying attention to the way we feel, think, and act in the present moment without being lost in distractions or the opinions of others. It's about being able to observe oneself objectively, to step back from automatic responses, and to assess one's values, desires, and goals with clarity. This process of self-reflection allows us to connect with our deeper sense of self, revealing our true nature beyond the roles we play or the labels society places upon us. It helps us to recognize the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and whether those stories align with our authentic selves. Self-awareness opens the door to self-knowledge, which in turn leads to self-acceptance. Without this awareness, it is difficult to accept ourselves fully because we remain disconnected from our true feelings, desires, and needs. At the core of self-awareness is the recognition that our thoughts and feelings are not necessarily facts. They are temporary states that can be influenced by our past experiences, current circumstances, and even our fears or insecurities. Through awareness, we begin to see that we are not defined by our emotions or thoughts. Instead, we are the observer of them. By developing this perspective, we gain greater control over our reactions and responses. We start to understand that we have the power to choose how we react to life's challenges rather than simply reacting out of habit or conditioned responses. In this process, self-awareness encourages us to examine our values and beliefs. Often we live life based on inherited beliefs, values instilled in us by our families, cultures, and societies. These beliefs may or may not align with our true selves. Self-awareness allows us to question these values and ask ourselves, are these beliefs truly mine? Or am I simply following the path laid out for me by others? Are they helping me to become the person I want to be? Or are they limiting my potential? Through self-awareness, we also begin to identify the ways in which we sabotage ourselves. These can take the form of negative self-talk, self-doubt, or engaging in behaviors that prevent us from reaching our full potential. Perhaps we continuously seek validation from others, believing that our worth is contingent upon their approval. Or we may allow fear to dictate our decisions, avoiding risks because of the potential for failure. Self-awareness helps us to recognize these patterns, bringing them into the light where we can assess their truth and challenge them. By doing so, we create the opportunity to replace these self-limiting behaviors with healthier, more empowering choices. However, self-awareness is not just about identifying negative patterns. It is also about recognizing our strengths, talents, and capabilities. Through self-reflection, we discover the qualities that make us unique and valuable. We learn what we are truly passionate about and what brings us joy. This awareness allows us to align our actions with our true desires, rather than living according to the expectations of others. When we know what we truly want out of life, we can make choices that support our growth and fulfillment. But even with self-awareness, acceptance often remains the more challenging aspect of self-love. Self-acceptance requires us to embrace all parts of ourselves, including the parts that we may not like or wish to change. It's about acknowledging both our strengths and our flaws with compassion and understanding. Self-acceptance is not about perfection, it's about acknowledging that we are all human, that we all have areas in which we can grow, and that this growth is part of the journey. It is recognizing that we are worthy of love and respect, even when we are not perfect or don't meet all of society's standards. The path to self-acceptance often involves letting go of unrealistic expectations. Many of us are conditioned to believe that we must meet certain standards to be worthy of love and acceptance. These standards are often externally imposed by media, family, or cultural norms. We are told that we must look a certain way, achieve specific milestones, or behave in particular ways to be considered successful or worthy. However, when we constantly strive to meet these standards, we are often left feeling inadequate or unfulfilled. True self-acceptance comes from the realization that we are enough as we are right now, in this moment. One of the keys to self-acceptance is learning to let go of comparison. In today's digital age, where we are constantly exposed to the highlight reels of other people's lives on social media, it is easy to fall into the trap of comparing ourselves to others. We may feel that we are not achieving enough, that our lives are not as glamorous, or that we are somehow falling short. However, comparison is one of the most destructive habits we can engage in. It keeps us focused on what we don't have or what we haven't yet accomplished, instead of appreciating what we already are and what we have already achieved. Self-acceptance means being content with our own journey, recognizing that everyone is on their own path. Just because someone else's life looks different doesn't mean ours is any less valuable or worthwhile. We must learn to appreciate our own story and the progress we've made, regardless of whether it aligns with someone else's timeline or expectations. We are all unique and our experiences are ours alone. When we stop comparing ourselves to others, we begin to appreciate the beauty of our own individual journey. Another important aspect of self-acceptance is embracing vulnerability. Often we hide the parts of ourselves that we deem flawed or weak in order to protect ourselves from judgment. However, it is through vulnerability that we connect with others on a deeper level and show ourselves the greatest compassion. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we admit that we are human, with imperfections, insecurities, and challenges. This openness is not a sign of weakness, but of strength. It is a courageous act that invites others to do the same, creating a space where we can be accepted for who we truly are, flaws and all. In the journey of self-acceptance, we must also learn to forgive ourselves. Many of us carry around guilt or shame for past mistakes, believing that these mistakes define us. We hold on to regret, thinking that we are somehow unworthy of love or success because of our past actions. But self-acceptance requires us to release this burden. Our past does not define who we are today. We are not the sum of our mistakes. We are the sum of our experiences, our lessons, and our growth. Self-forgiveness is a powerful step in the process of self-acceptance because it allows us to move forward with compassion and understanding rather than staying stuck in a cycle of self-blame. Self-awareness and self-acceptance also allow us to build a deeper sense of empathy and compassion for others. When we truly understand and accept ourselves, we are better equipped to understand and accept others. We recognize that everyone is on their own journey, dealing with their own challenges and facing their own battles. Instead of being critical or judgmental, we approach others with kindness and empathy. We understand that no one is perfect and that we all have room for growth. This acceptance creates an environment of mutual respect where both ourselves and others can thrive. The journey of self-awareness and acceptance is ongoing. It is not something that can be achieved overnight or in a few simple steps. It is a lifelong process of reflection, growth, and change. We will continue to discover new layers of ourselves, and we will encounter challenges that test our ability to accept ourselves fully. But through this process, we become more attuned to our true selves and more capable of living authentically. Self-awareness and self-acceptance create the foundation for a life that is lived with purpose, meaning, and fulfillment. They are the keys to unlocking the full potential of who we are and to embracing the power that lies within us all. Forgiveness and growth are two powerful concepts that play an essential role in the journey of personal development. Together, they form the cornerstone of emotional healing, self-empowerment, and resilience. Yet, despite their importance, both forgiveness and growth are often misunderstood or resisted because they require us to face our vulnerabilities, our past mistakes, and the emotional pain we may be carrying. To forgive is not merely to forget, nor is growth simply a linear process. Both require an openness to change, a willingness to let go, and the courage to move forward in the face of adversity. At its core, forgiveness is the act of releasing feelings of resentment, anger, or hurt towards someone, often ourselves. It is not about condoning or excusing the wrongdoing, but about freeing ourselves from the burden of negative emotions that weigh us down. Forgiveness is an act of self-liberation. It allows us to reclaim our peace of mind and to break free from the cycle of bitterness, grudges, and emotional stagnation. It enables us to free ourselves from the emotional energy that can keep us trapped in the past, holding on to pain that has long since passed its usefulness. However, it is important to recognize that forgiveness does not happen overnight. It is a process, often requiring patience and introspection. The process of forgiveness is not about pretending that the hurt didn't happen or simply moving on without addressing the underlying pain. It requires acknowledging the harm, recognizing the emotions it evoked, and then choosing to release them. It's about choosing to no longer allow the past to dictate how we feel in the present. When we forgive, we make the conscious decision to stop letting the actions of others hold power over our emotional state. Forgiveness is particularly crucial when it comes to forgiving ourselves. Self-forgiveness is often the hardest form of forgiveness to practice because it means facing the mistakes and failures we feel most ashamed of. We carry guilt and regret for the things we wish we had done differently, the opportunities we missed, and the hurt we may have caused others. This guilt can become a constant companion, a voice in the back of our minds telling us we're not good enough or that we're undeserving of happiness. But holding on to this guilt only inhibits our growth. It prevents us from seeing the lessons that come with failure and the opportunities for transformation that lie hidden in our mistakes. Self-forgiveness is about recognizing that we are all human and therefore imperfect. It's about acknowledging that mistakes are an inevitable part of life and are not a reflection of our worth or our potential. Each misstep offers an opportunity to learn, to adapt, and to evolve. We cannot grow if we are stuck in the past, replaying our errors and criticizing ourselves for what we didn't do right. By forgiving ourselves, we release the emotional weight of past mistakes, and in doing so, we create space for growth, healing, and transformation. However, true forgiveness, whether for others or for ourselves, requires a deep understanding of what forgiveness actually entails. Forgiveness is not about excusing the actions of others or pretending that the hurt wasn't real. Rather, it is about recognizing that holding on to anger and resentment only causes us more harm. It's about choosing to release the emotional burden that no longer serves us. It is about accepting that, while we cannot change the past, we have the power to choose how we respond to it moving forward. This decision allows us to take back control over our emotional state and to free ourselves from the grip of negativity. As we move through life, it's easy to accumulate emotional baggage. Unforgiven wrongs, unspoken words, and unresolved conflicts can pile up and leave us feeling heavy, burdened, and disconnected from ourselves. But when we choose to forgive, we engage in a profound act of self-care. We free ourselves from the cycle of bitterness, revenge, and self-pity, and instead open up to the possibility of healing. When we let go of these negative emotions, we create space for positivity, peace, and growth to enter our lives. We allow ourselves to focus on what truly matters rather than being consumed by the wounds of the past. It's crucial to understand that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. To forgive doesn't mean to erase the past or to pretend that the harm didn't occur. Rather, it means accepting what happened and choosing to move forward with a sense of peace. When we forgive, we stop allowing the wrongs to define us. Instead, we define ourselves by our ability to move beyond the hurt and to rise above it. It is the act of saying, I am not going to be defined by this experience. I am going to grow from it, and I am going to let it go. Forgiveness also requires us to cultivate empathy and compassion. When we learn to forgive, we are able to see things from the perspective of the person who hurt us. This doesn't mean justifying their actions or excusing their behavior, but rather understanding that people hurt others for reasons of their own. Often, pain is transferred from one person to another. People who hurt us may themselves be dealing with unresolved issues, personal struggles, or past trauma. When we cultivate empathy, we begin to see the humanity in others, which allows us to let go of our anger and resentment. Yet forgiveness is not always easy. It can be one of the most difficult tasks we face, especially when the hurt is deep or when the wrongs seem unforgivable. In some cases, the wounds are so severe that it may feel impossible to forgive. But in those moments, we must remember that forgiveness is a gift we give to ourselves, not the other person. By holding on to grudges, we continue to give the power to the person who hurt us. We allow them to control our emotions and our happiness. But when we forgive, we take back that power. We choose to release the hold that the past has over us and free ourselves to live in the present. Forgiveness is also intricately linked with personal growth. As we forgive, we make room for growth, healing, and self-discovery. Growth often arises from adversity. It is in our most difficult moments, when we are faced with pain, disappointment, or betrayal, that we have the greatest opportunity to evolve. When we hold on to anger, however, we prevent ourselves from growing. Anger keeps us stuck, while forgiveness propels us forward. When we choose forgiveness, we choose the path of growth. We allow ourselves to learn from the experience, to become more resilient, and to develop a deeper sense of compassion, both for ourselves and others. Personal growth requires a willingness to embrace change and challenge the status quo. It requires us to step outside of our comfort zones and to confront the parts of ourselves that are uncomfortable or difficult to face. Growth is about pushing through obstacles and facing adversity with courage. It's about recognizing that pain is a teacher, not a punishment, and that it is through difficulty that we develop the strength, wisdom, and resilience needed to move forward. Growth is not a destination, but a lifelong journey, and it is through the process of forgiveness that we begin to remove the emotional barriers that prevent us from fully embracing this journey. Furthermore, growth requires us to let go of the need for perfection. As human beings, we are inherently imperfect. We make mistakes, we experience setbacks, and we face challenges. Growth comes from accepting our imperfections and using them as catalysts for learning. It requires us to embrace vulnerability and to acknowledge that we are works in progress. When we forgive ourselves for our imperfections, we free ourselves from the need for constant self-criticism and open ourselves up to the possibility of becoming the best version of ourselves. Forgiveness also deepens our connection to others. When we forgive, we create space for healthier, more authentic relationships. Holding on to grudges and resentment can create emotional distance and alienation from others. But forgiveness allows us to approach relationships with greater empathy, understanding, and compassion. It fosters a sense of trust and healing, allowing us to connect on a deeper level. As we grow in our ability to forgive, we grow in our ability to love and accept others for who they are, rather than for the mistakes they've made. In the process of forgiveness, we also learn to let go of expectations. Often we hold on to the hope that others will apologize or make amends for their actions. We wait for closure or for them to admit their wrongdoing. But in reality, we cannot control the actions of others. Waiting for an apology or acknowledgement from someone else keeps us stuck in the past and prevents us from moving forward. Forgiveness is about letting go of the need for validation or reconciliation from others. It is about taking responsibility for our own emotional well-being and choosing to move on, regardless of whether or not the other person is willing to acknowledge their part in the situation. Ultimately, forgiveness and growth are two sides of the same coin. Forgiveness opens the door to growth, while growth makes forgiveness possible. The more we forgive, the more we create the space necessary for personal transformation. The more we grow, the easier it becomes to forgive, because we begin to see the value in letting go of negative emotions. It is through forgiveness that we unlock our potential for growth, and through growth that we cultivate the wisdom and emotional maturity needed to practice forgiveness. It is a continuous cycle, one that propels us forward on the path of personal evolution. Setting boundaries and prioritizing well-being are two essential aspects of living a balanced and fulfilling life. Often overlooked or undervalued, these practices are vital in protecting our mental, emotional, and physical health. In a world that demands constant productivity, interaction, and availability, it can be easy to forget the importance of setting clear boundaries and taking time to nurture our own well-being. However, both are critical to maintaining a sense of control over our lives, reducing stress, and ensuring that we can show up fully for ourselves and others. At the core of setting boundaries is the understanding that we are not obligated to give all of ourselves to others at the expense of our own well-being. Boundaries are the limits we set on what we are willing to accept from others, whether it be in our personal relationships, work, or even how we manage our time and energy. These limits are not meant to isolate us or create walls between us and others, but to define the space in which we can function in a healthy, sustainable way. Boundaries give us the ability to protect ourselves emotionally, mentally, and physically without feeling guilty or selfish. They help us preserve our energy, allowing us to engage with the world in a way that is both fulfilling and manageable. One of the key elements of setting boundaries is understanding what our limits are. For many people, the concept of boundaries can be difficult to navigate because they have not taken the time to reflect on their own needs and desires. It's easy to become so caught up in the expectations of others or in societal pressures that we lose sight of what truly matters to us. But knowing where our limits lie is essential to setting healthy boundaries. It involves being honest with ourselves about what we are willing and able to give and where we need to draw the line in order to preserve our sense of self. For example, it might be important to set boundaries in the workplace, especially when it comes to workload and time commitments. In a high-pressure environment, it can be easy to feel compelled to say yes to every request or to take on more than we can handle. However, consistently overextending ourselves can lead to burnout, stress, and resentment. Setting boundaries in this context means being clear about the amount of work we can realistically take on and having the courage to say no when necessary. It also means communicating those limits to others in a respectful and assertive way. Similarly, boundaries are crucial in personal relationships. Healthy relationships are built on mutual respect, and this includes respecting each other's time, energy, and emotional capacity. Setting boundaries in relationships means being able to communicate when we need space, when we need to say no to certain requests, or when we need to ask for support. It also means being honest about our emotional needs and desires without fear of judgment or rejection. For example, if someone consistently drains our energy or treats us in a way that feels disrespectful, setting a boundary might involve distancing ourselves from that person or having a difficult conversation to express our feelings. Setting boundaries is not always easy, especially when we fear disappointing others or facing conflict. Often we feel obligated to say yes to others, even when it comes at the cost of our own well-being. This can stem from a fear of rejection, a desire to be liked, or a deeply ingrained sense of responsibility to others. But the truth is that saying yes when we really mean no only leads to resentment and emotional exhaustion. By setting boundaries, we teach others how to treat us and demonstrate that our needs are just as important as theirs. It's important to remember that setting boundaries is not an act of selfishness, but of self-care. It's an acknowledgement that we cannot pour from an empty cup, and that in order to be there for others, we must first take care of ourselves. Prioritizing well-being goes hand in hand with setting boundaries. To prioritize our well-being means to actively choose to make decisions that contribute to our physical, mental, and emotional health. It involves recognizing that we are worthy of care and attention, and that our needs deserve to be met just as much as anyone else's. Prioritizing well-being is a practice that must be cultivated every day. It requires making conscious choices that align with our values and support our overall health and happiness. One of the most important aspects of prioritizing well-being is self-care. Our thoughts and beliefs have a powerful impact on our overall well-being. Negative thinking patterns such as self-criticism, fear, and doubt can contribute to stress, anxiety, and depression. On the other hand, cultivating a positive mindset can boost our resilience, improve our emotional health, and increase our overall sense of well-being. This involves being mindful of our thoughts, challenging negative beliefs, and practicing gratitude. When we focus on what we are grateful for, we shift our perspective from lack to abundance, from fear to love. A positive mindset doesn't mean ignoring challenges or pretending that everything is perfect, but it involves approaching life with a sense of optimism and possibility. Prioritizing well-being also involves seeking support when needed. It's important to recognize that we don't have to navigate life's challenges alone. Reaching out to others for help, whether it be a therapist, a friend, or a support group, is a sign of strength, not weakness. Sometimes talking through our struggles with someone we trust can provide clarity, comfort, and perspective. Seeking support allows us to process our emotions, gain insights into our own behavior, and develop healthier coping strategies. Setting boundaries and prioritizing well-being are interconnected practices that empower us to live healthier, more fulfilling lives. Boundaries provide the structure and protection we need to preserve our energy and focus on what truly matters. By setting clear limits, we prevent burnout, reduce stress, and create the space for personal growth. Prioritizing well-being ensures that we are making conscious choices to nurture our physical, mental, and emotional health. It's about creating a life that is balanced, authentic, and aligned with our values. Both practices require courage, self-awareness, and self-compassion. In a world that constantly pulls us in multiple directions, setting boundaries and prioritizing well-being are acts of self-respect and self-love. They are essential for creating a life that is meaningful, joyful, and sustainable. Authenticity and responsibility are foundational elements of living a life that is not only fulfilling but also meaningful. These two principles are deeply interconnected, as embracing one without the other often results in a skewed or unsustainable existence. Authenticity is about being true to oneself, embracing who we are at the core, and living in alignment with our values, desires, and beliefs. Responsibility, on the other hand, is the recognition that we have an obligation to ourselves and others to act with integrity, accountability, and a sense of purpose. When we live authentically, we align ourselves with our truth, while responsibility ensures that we honor the impact of our actions on both ourselves and the world around us. Authenticity begins with self-awareness, an honest exploration of who we truly are. In a world full of external influences, society, family, culture, media, it's easy to lose touch with our true selves. We may begin to define ourselves through the eyes of others, adopting identities that are not fully our own. This can lead to feelings of confusion, frustration, or emptiness. We may find ourselves pursuing careers or relationships that don't fulfill us simply because we've been told that these are the things we should want. The first step in reclaiming authenticity is to take the time to tune into ourselves, to reflect on our feelings, desires, and dreams. It requires us to strip away the layers of external expectation and peer influence and reconnect with our inner voice. Being authentic means choosing to live in a way that is true to our own nature, regardless of the opinions or judgments of others. When we are authentic, we stop pretending to be someone we're not. This doesn't mean that we act in ways that are harmful or disrespectful to others. Rather, it means that we are no longer hiding parts of ourselves out of fear, shame, or the desire for approval. Authenticity requires vulnerability, the courage to show up as our true selves, even when it feels uncomfortable or risky. It's about accepting both our strengths and our weaknesses, understanding that we are imperfect and human, and embracing our individuality. True authenticity is about expressing ourselves honestly and living in a way that reflects our values, desires, and passions. It's about honoring our own needs and showing up in relationships, work, and life with integrity. Living authentically can be challenging, especially when societal norms or family expectations push us to conform. Many people struggle to embrace authenticity because they fear rejection, judgment, or criticism. The desire to belong and be accepted is a natural human instinct, and in the pursuit of this, we may suppress parts of ourselves to fit in. But living inauthentically often leads to a sense of dissatisfaction and inner conflict. We may experience anxiety, depression, or a deep sense of emptiness because we are not honoring who we truly are. Over time, this can erode our self-esteem and our sense of purpose. Living authentically means trusting in ourselves, even when it means stepping outside the bounds of what is considered normal or acceptable. It requires us to understand that authenticity is not a choice between fitting in and standing out, but rather a commitment to living truthfully, no matter the external pressures. Responsibility complements authenticity in a profound way. While authenticity focuses on understanding and expressing who we truly are, responsibility involves recognizing that our actions, choices, and behaviors have consequences. Responsibility is about acknowledging that we are not only accountable for ourselves, but also for the impact we have on others and the world around us. When we act authentically, we must also recognize the responsibility that comes with it. Being true to ourselves is not about acting in ways that disregard the well-being of others. It's about finding a balance between honoring our needs and respecting the rights and feelings of those around us. Responsibility requires us to consider the long-term effects of our actions and decisions, ensuring that we contribute positively to the lives of others and to the world. In personal relationships, authenticity and responsibility are especially important. In order for relationships to be healthy and sustainable, they must be built on a foundation of honesty, trust, and respect. This means that we must show up as our true selves, communicating our needs, feelings, and boundaries clearly and openly. When we are authentic in our relationships, we invite others to do the same, creating a space where both parties can be vulnerable and honest. However, responsibility plays a critical role in maintaining balance. Being authentic in relationships doesn't mean saying or doing whatever comes to mind without regard for the other person's feelings. Responsibility means being mindful of how our actions and words affect others, taking responsibility for our emotions, and being accountable for the way we treat those we love. It means listening, empathizing, and engaging in ways that foster mutual respect and understanding. Responsibility also extends to our role in society. Each individual plays a part in the collective well-being, whether in small, everyday actions or in larger societal contributions. Living authentically doesn't mean acting without consideration for others or for the wider community. Instead, it means aligning our personal truth with a sense of responsibility toward the greater good. This could be through acts of kindness, contributing to causes we believe in, or simply showing up in a way that reflects our values and respect for others. Authenticity in this context doesn't just serve us as individuals, but also enhances the collective experience. By living responsibly, we honor our interconnectedness with others and work toward the betterment of society as a whole. When we are authentic, we must also take responsibility for our own growth. Personal development is a lifelong journey, and living authentically involves being willing to evolve, learn, and grow as individuals. We are not static beings, and our values, beliefs, and understanding of ourselves can change over time. Embracing authenticity means being open to that growth, acknowledging our flaws, and accepting that we are always in the process of becoming. However, growth also requires responsibility. It requires us to take ownership of our actions, decisions, and mistakes and to learn from them. Instead of avoiding discomfort or running from challenges, responsibility encourages us to face them head-on, with a commitment to improve and to become better versions of ourselves. We may make mistakes along the way, but taking responsibility for those mistakes allows us to learn, grow, and continue moving forward. Responsibility also involves recognizing and addressing the impact of our past choices. It's easy to blame circumstances, other people, or external factors for the situations we find ourselves in. However, embracing responsibility means acknowledging that, to some extent, we are the architects of our own lives. Our choices, actions, and responses shape the path we take. While we cannot change the past, we can take responsibility for our present and future. This means understanding how our past decisions have influenced where we are today and making conscious choices that reflect our authentic selves. It also means letting go of blame and guilt, choosing to move forward with intention, and taking proactive steps to create a life that aligns with our values. Living authentically and responsibly requires us to cultivate self-discipline and emotional intelligence. Discipline helps us stay true to our commitments, especially when faced with challenges or distractions. It allows us to maintain our focus on our goals, even when the path is difficult. Emotional intelligence, on the other hand, enables us to navigate our emotions and interactions with others in a balanced, thoughtful way. Both of these qualities contribute to a life of integrity, one where we can be true to ourselves while honoring our obligations and responsibilities to others. Developing these qualities requires ongoing effort, self-reflection, and a willingness to learn and grow. In the workplace, authenticity and responsibility are just as critical. Many people find themselves in jobs or careers that don't align with their true passions or values. This can lead to dissatisfaction, burnout, and a sense of disconnection. Embracing authenticity in our professional lives means taking the time to assess our career goals, values, and aspirations, and making decisions that reflect these truths. This might involve taking a risk to pursue a more meaningful career path or simply setting boundaries in our current role to ensure that we are not sacrificing our well-being for the sake of success or external validation. However, being authentic in the workplace doesn't mean disregarding professionalism or responsibility. It means balancing our personal truth with a commitment to fulfilling our duties, meeting expectations, and contributing meaningfully to the organization or community we are part of. Ultimately, authenticity and responsibility are intertwined in the sense that living authentically without taking responsibility for our actions can lead to selfishness or disregard for others. Conversely, acting responsibly without authenticity can lead to feelings of resentment, disconnection, or burnout. The key is finding a balance between the two. When we are authentic, we align ourselves with our deepest values and truth, creating a life of integrity, fulfillment, and purpose. At the same time, when we embrace responsibility, we ensure that our authenticity serves not only ourselves but others and the world around us. Together, authenticity and responsibility create a foundation for a life that is not only true to who we are, but also accountable for the impact we have on the lives of others. By embracing authenticity and responsibility, we open ourselves up to the potential for deep personal growth, meaningful connections, and a life that truly reflects our values. Through this process, we become the architects of our own reality, creating lives that are not only fulfilling but also aligned with our highest selves.